Hi all, today we are doing a year-end wrap-up and taking a look at my personal top 10 favorite movies released in 2022. Obviously, I still have a lot on my watch list, so some of the ones that are on my radar that I haven't watched yet include She Said, Skin and Bones, The Banshees of, I'm gonna butcher this, Inisherin, Fresh, Piggy, Resurrection, Tar, Bullet Train, All Quiet on the Western Front, Everything Everywhere All at Once, Washer, No Exit, MK Ultra, Turning Red, Del Toro's Pinocchio, You Won't Be Alone, A Wounded Fawn, Blood Relatives, Dark Glasses, Sissy, Raven's Hollow, Speak No Evil, Salome, Glorious, They Live in the Grey, and Hellbender. So, now let's get into the top 10. At number 10, I have Pearl. Ty West squeezed out 2 films this year, with X and then Pearl, and while I thought X was fun, I really enjoyed Pearl. I liked that it was very character-driven, diving into serial killing origins of the film's titular character. Having a young woman from the 1910s as the lead of a slasher was a nice change of pace. The set designs, costumes, and music for this one were all great, and the whole film was just like oozing with this technicolor beauty. Mia Goth really got to show off her acting chops in this one, and while it didn't have as many kills as X, I appreciated the slower pace and choice to foreground the story, and of course that monologue at the end, wow, Oscar-worthy. At number 9, I have Werewolf by Night. Yes, a Marvel movie made my top 10 for this year, which is definitely not something I was expecting, but Werewolf by Night easily earns its spot. Michael Giacchino, mainly known for his musical work on films such as The Batman and Up, absolutely killed it with this love letter to classic Universal monster movies. Laura Donnelly from Outlander is so cool as Elsa Bloodstone, a character I really hope Marvel will give more of a spotlight in the future. There's so many cool creature designs, the practical labyrinth garden sets impressed me, and the violence in this one might have been what surprised me most. People are like losing limbs, there's like blood spurts, and the film just doesn't hold back, and I'm surprised Marvel is okay, like, with this one going as far as it did. My only complaint is I wish it was longer. I hope they make more like this one, because it was awesome. At number 8, I have The Batman. Yep, another superhero movie makes the list. Another surprise. It's another gritty Batman film, but I appreciated the noir aspects of this one. The intricate crime plot really reminded me of something like The Big Sleep, and the detective skills of the Caped Crusader were definitely more pronounced than in some of the other adaptations. Jeffrey Wright was great as always, and is probably my favorite iteration of Gordon. He's really good. The rest of the cast was good too. Pattinson, Kravitz, Farrell, Serkis, Turturro, Dano. Like, this cast was stacked. I thought adapting Riddler as a serial killer was an interesting approach, even if Dano sort of overdid it at times. This one definitely had the most gore for a live-action Batman film. I'm looking at you, severed thumb scene. But it didn't feel as vicious as, like, say, the pool cue fights or live leak Joker footage from The Dark Knight. This one doesn't even come close to touching The Dark Knight for me. I mean, nothing does, but the Batman was enjoyable, it was well made, and it was different enough to be interesting, so it gets a spot on this list. At number 7, I have What Josiah Saw. This one was a surprise hit for me. I went in knowing nothing about this one other than it had Robert Patrick from T2 and Tony Hale from Arrested Development, and that was a good thing that I didn't know much because this one was full of twists and turns. This is probably the darkest film I saw this year, except for one coming up that was also pretty dark. This one was dark in like a realistic way. It starts out icky, and just like when you think the film can't sink any lower, it keeps getting more and more depraved, and it's really messed up stuff here. So while some of the ideas were just outright repulsive, the ending somehow managed to be darkly beautiful, and that's something that really strengthened the heart of this one for me. Like, even amongst all the abuse and depravity, the characters were able to love and be loved and find solace before, obviously, there's some unfortunate ends. Southern Gothic has been thrown around a lot when discussing this one, and that description really nails the atmosphere. Great performances all around, great script, and a great slow burn. At number 6, I have Barbarian. This one caught me off guard because going into the premise, like, it sounded alright, but I was not prepared for the absolutely demented comedy that would unfold. A man and a woman get double booked at an Airbnb, which just sounds like a typical thriller plot, but Barbarian twists and turns this concept to its horrific and comedic limits. Justin Long is hilarious in this movie, and the way the film continuously reinvents itself over the runtime will have you wondering how an hour and 42 minutes went by so fast. I am deliberately trying to avoid specifics because this one is best going in knowing as little as possible. If anything, just watch the Justin Long's new movie trailer that they put out after the film's release. It's easily one of the best trailers I've seen for one of the best films of this year. At number 5, I have Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery. Knives Out was probably my second favorite film of 2019 after Dr. Sleep, which I absolutely loved. Mike Flanagan, amazing as always. So my expectations were high for Rian Johnson's whodunit sequel to Knives Out. I'm happy to say this one was just as much fun as the first film. It kept me guessing and still managed to subvert expectations for an audience expecting the subversions, and I think that is a really strong point of the film. Here we got another all-star cast for this one, and Craig makes his glorious return as Benoit Blanc. The characters were great. Johnson structured the non-chronological events in an unobtrusive, naturally flowing manner while keeping the most important reveals secret, and that is crucial to the success of this film. And the whole film just overall had a great comedic tone. It was laugh out loud funny at times, and I am eagerly awaiting the third entry scheduled for 2024. At number 4, I have Prey. Dan Trachtenberg revitalized the Cloverfield franchise back in 2016, and here he is in 2022 bringing new life to the Predator series. So, unlike most people, I enjoyed Shane Black's The Predator back in 2018, I think it was. Prey takes a very different approach by going back in time to the 1700s and adopting a much more serious tone. Prey features a cast of many indigenous actors who get a kick-ass in some really brutal action scenes. There's so many long takes that really left me wondering how they pulled off some of these spectacles. Watching a Comanche warrior Nauru take on colonizers in grisly fashion was very satisfying. The gore in this one is strong, like even for a Predator film, and I appreciated the blend of practical and CG effects. Also, shout out to Coco the dog, who wasn't, they weren't even a trained dog, like they weren't trained to be in films, but they made an exceptional debut as Sari. Coco should be remembered alongside other animal greats like J.D. Tonic, Jaeger, and Leo from 2019's Pet Sematary, Eve, the cow from First Cow, as well as Bart the Bear and his successor, Bart the Bear 2, who appeared in Game of Thrones. Love those guys. At number 3, I have Where the Crawdads Sing. Here's another film I went into with no expectations, not even knowing the general plot. I knew Daisy Edgar-Jones was in it, who was great as Marianne in Normal People, another great book adaptation. But other than that, everything was a surprise for me. And what a number of surprises this film had. It ended up being this engrossing murder mystery mixed with like this decade-spanning tale of Kaya, who is a girl who grows up in South Carolina marshes in the mid-1900s. The story is dark, but has a strong heart to it that somehow manages to find hope in some unlikely places. Romance, murder mystery, family drama, like call it what you want, but I thought Where the Crawdads Sing was a wonderful adaptation of Delia Owens' wonderful novel. At number 2, I have Mad God. Phil Tippett has worked on some of the most iconic stop-motion and go-motion sequences in films, including the chess-like game in A New Hope, the AT-AT walkers, and Tauntaun in Empire Strikes Back, as well as Ed 209 and some of the other robots in RoboCop. So apparently Tippett started working on Mad God back in like the late 80s, right around 1990, after working on RoboCop 2, but after the release of Jurassic Park, he gave up the project after becoming disheartened about the trend towards CGI. He revived the project in 2010, but didn't have the money to make it, so he started a Kickstarter, and that raised like just over $124,000. Over the next decade, Tippett worked on this project, with it finally being released on Shudder this year. Tippett suffered a mental health breakdown a year before the project was completed, but he persevered and released one of the greatest horror films I have ever seen. Mad God would be number 1 on my list if a certain beloved franchise of mine didn't have a sequel this year, but honestly, I think Mad God is a much better film. Mad God is like if Tim Burton smoked meth. It is a descent into stop-motion hell. The creature designs are filled to the brim with macabre imagination. The stop-motion looks beautiful as ever, and the gore is relentless. Mad God is packed with an amount of creativity I've seen in very few films. The plot is insane, surreal, bleak. The worlds Tippett creates are wholly unique, and I really hope with the success of Mad God that Tippett gets money to make more films like this, because this one was outstanding. Highest praise I can give. Mad God is a must-see. Before we get to number 1, I'm going to take a page from Watch Mojo and do some honorable mentions in no particular order. Nope. Top Gun Maverick. Scream 5. VHS 99. The Northman, Terrifier 2, Satan's Slaves, Communion, The Cursed, Smile, Christmas Bloody Christmas, The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, Allegoria, and The Menu. Okay, on to number 1. My personal favorite film of 2022 was Clerks 3. I don't think it's the best film of the year, if I'm being honest, but as a fan of Clerks and Clerks 2, I couldn't have asked for a better send-off. I was lucky enough to see this film for a second time at a screening where Kevin Smith did a Q&A afterwards, and he noted that the original Clerks was about as real as a film could be. It's a film about young people working for minimum wage in a convenience store, made by a young person working for minimum wage in that very convenience store. But by the time Clerks 2 came around, Smith said that the film was totally fantasy at that point, because unlike Dante and Randall, he had gone off to achieve massive success in Hollywood. He said he had never even worked in fast food. While I enjoyed Clerks 2, I did feel like that it was too much on the fantasy side, that it didn't feel grounded and real like the first Clerks. However, with Clerks 3, Smith brings the franchise back to its roots and incorporates his real-life experiences with heart attacks. He explained that his father died to a heart attack, and of course he had a very well-publicized one a few years back. Clerks 3 is filled with a lot of heart, a lot of love for both the previous films, and an abundance of fan service. I'm going to be honest, some of the jokes suck. I'm looking at you NFTs and kites, which apparently are some of the only things Smith scavenged from his original Clerks 3 script. Yeah, this movie was written before, and they totally scrapped an entirely different plot that would have been involving a movie theater shooting and totally crazy different stuff. That it would have gone a totally different direction than this film ended up going, but I really wish he hadn't kept the jokes about NFTs and kites, because they were super lame. Elias and his minion are super annoying, and they're a bunch of hammed up, overacting performances. But this film hit on some really emotional notes and finally gave Clerks the ending it deserved after almost 3 decades. The payoff for this one was worth every stupid joke and every cringy delivery for me. So those are my personal favorite films of 2022. Dune Grips out.